They ambushed one unarmed human engineer with gravity disruptors, and watched their weapons disappear into his wrist. Commander Vekris crouched behind a rusted support beam, his four eyes scanning the darkened corridors of the Epsilon Ridge mining colony. The place had been abandoned for 3 solar cycles, left to rot after the humans stripped it of every valuable mineral they could find. Typical. They were like insects, really. Swarm in, take everything, move on to the next target. And yet here he was, tracking one of them through this metal graveyard with an entire strike team at his disposal. He tapped his comm unit twice. Short, efficient. The way proper soldiers communicated. Position report, he whispered, his mandibles clicking softly. North corridor secure, Commander. Lieutenant Thorax responded. No movement detected. South passage locked down. Sergeant Krell added. Target should be converging on Cargo Bay 7. Vekris allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. The human, some engineer named Jack Reeves according to their intel, had wandered into this abandoned facility like a gift from the void itself. Alone, unarmed, probably, certainly unaware that the Crothian Empire's finest were about to make him a footnote in this pathetic war. He glanced down at the gravity disruptor mounted on his forearm. The weapon hummed with barely contained power, a soft purple glow emanating from its core. 3 years of development. 17 billion credits. The finest gravitational manipulation technology the Empire had ever produced, and the humans with their primitive understanding of physics, their fragile bone structures, their laughable dependence on their own planet's weak gravity. They would never see it coming. Remember your training, Vekris transmitted to his squad. Humans are structurally inferior. Their skeletons cannot withstand rapid gravitational shifts. 1 pulse should be sufficient to neutralize the target. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Neutralize sounded better than what would actually happen. The gravity pulse would effectively turn the humans' insides into soup. Not a pleasant way to go, but then again, this was war. The humans had been expanding too aggressively, claiming systems that rightfully belonged to more advanced species. Someone had to put them in their place. All units prepare gravity disruptors, Vekris commanded. Charge to full power. I want this clean and quick. The responding clicks of acknowledgement came through his earpiece. 6 soldiers, 7 including himself, all equipped with the same devastating weapon. It was overkill, honestly. Complete overkill for one squishy human engineer. But High Command had been very specific in their orders. Make an example. Send a message. Show these upstart primates what happens when they venture too far from their little blue marble. Vekris checked his tactical display. The heat signature, definitely human judging by the elevated body temperature, was moving through the cargo bay. Slow, casual. The fool probably thought he was alone out here, probably thought he could scavenge some spare parts, maybe grab a souvenir from humanity's never-ending resource extraction. Target entering kill zone in 30 seconds, Thorax reported. Vekris flexed his secondary arms, feeling the weapon system sync with his neural implants. The gravity disruptor responded instantly, its charge building to maximum capacity. Around him he could sense his team doing the same. 7 weapons, all focused on one fragile human. This would be over in seconds. This is almost too easy, Krell muttered over the comm. Stay focused, Vekris snapped back, though privately he agreed. Their intelligence reports had been very clear. Humans were dangerous in groups, yes, clever with their tactics, surprisingly aggressive for such a physically weak species, but alone, isolated, they were nothing, just soft tissue and calcium deposits waiting to collapse under the right application of force. The heat signature stopped moving. Dead center of the cargo bay. All units on my mark, Vekris whispered. His heart rate increased, pumping greenish blood through his vessels faster. The thrill of the hunt. The satisfaction of a plan coming together. 3, 2, 1. He stepped out from behind the support beam, his gravity disruptor raised and locked on target. Mark. 7 Crothian soldiers emerged from the shadows simultaneously, forming a perfect circle around the human. Vekris had to admit, the synchronization was flawless, textbook execution, the kind of maneuver that won battles and earned promotions. Jack Reeves stood in the center of the cargo bay, holding what appeared to be some kind of scanning device. He looked up slowly, almost lazily, and his face did that strange thing humans did when they were amused. A smile, they called it. Baring teeth. Predatory species behavior, which made absolutely no sense given how weak they were. Well, the human said, his voice echoing in the empty bay. "This is new." Vekris ignored the comment. Humans always talk too much. It was one of their more annoying characteristics, right up there with their inability to accept their place in the galactic hierarchy. "Human-designated Jack Reeves," Vekris announced, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into something the primitive could understand. "You have been deemed a threat to Crothian expansion. Surrender is not an option." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Just one. How did they even do that? A threat? Me? I am literally here looking for spare compression coils. But hey, if you want to make this dramatic, I respect the commitment." "Fire," Vekris commanded. 7 gravity disruptors discharged at once. The sound was magnificent, a deep resonating thrum that Vekris felt in his bones, in his teeth, in every fiber of his being. The air itself seemed to scream as 7 concentrated gravitational fields converged on a single point. Reality warped visibly, space bending around the human like water circling a drain. This was the part where the target should collapse, where bones should shatter, where internal organs should rupture and liquefy, where a human being should crumple into a broken heap of biological failure. Jack Reeves stood there, just stood there. The gravitational forces, enough to compress a small vehicle into a cube, swirled around him like wind. His hair ruffled slightly, his jacket flapped a bit, and on his left wrist a simple black band began to glow with a soft blue light. "What?" Sergeant Krell breathed. "What is happening?" Vekris stared. His brain refused to process what his eyes were showing him. The gravity pulse was still active. He could see it on his display. Maximum output. 7 weapons operating at full capacity. The human should be paced. Should be a red smear on the floor. Should be dead. Dead. Instead, Jack looked down at his wristband with the expression of someone mildly inconvenienced. "Huh," the human said, tapping the glowing device. That tickled. The wristband pulsed brighter, the blue light intensifying with each second. Vekris watched, his mandibles hanging open in shock, as the gravitational energy, the energy from 7 military-grade weapons, simply vanished into that small black band. "Cease fire," Vekris shouted. But his team had already stopped, their weapons powering down in confusion and horror. Jack rotated his wrist, examining the band like it was a new watch. "You know, I have got to say that was actually pretty strong. Most gravity weapons barely register anymore. You guys must have the new models, yeah?" "That is impossible," Lieutenant Thorax stammered. "The gravitational force should have crushed every bone in your body, should have pulverized your organs, should have killed you 17 times over. Should have, would have, could have," Jack said, his smile widening, "but did not. Because, and I am just going to be honest with you here, we figured out the whole gravity weapon thing about 40 years ago. Bit late to the party, are we not?" Vekris felt something he had not experienced in 15 years of military service. True, genuine, soul-crushing fear. The wristband continued to glow, now pulsing rhythmically, like a heartbeat. The human had just absorbed enough gravitational energy to level a building, and he was standing there completely unharmed, talking to them like they were children who had tried something cute but ultimately pointless. "What is that device?" Vekris demanded, trying to keep his voice steady. Jack glanced at his wrist again. This is just standard issue. Pretty much every human who works in space has one. You never know when you might run into, unexpected gravitational anomalies." He paused, his grin turning absolutely wicked, or hostile aliens with really expensive toys they do not know how to use properly. Jack walked toward the nearest crate and sat down on it, crossing his legs like he was settling in for a casual chat at a cafe. The wristband still glowed on his arm, pulsing with stolen energy. Vekris's stolen energy. "So, let me walk you through what just happened," Jack said, gesturing with his hands like a teacher addressing particularly slow students. "Because I feel like there has been a fundamental misunderstanding here, and honestly, it is kind of hilarious." Vekris kept his weapon raised, though his hands were shaking. Around him, his strike team looked equally rattled, their training completely inadequate for whatever this situation had become. "You fired gravity disruptors at me. 7 of them. Simultaneously. Very coordinated, by the way. Gold star for teamwork." Jack made a little gesture with his fingers mimicking a star. "Now gravity disruptors work by creating localized gravitational fields that compress matter. Very nasty. Very effective. Against, things that are not prepared for them." He tapped the wristband twice, and the blue glow shifted to a softer purple. This little beauty is called a gravitational absorption and redistribution device. We just call them guards. Catchy, right? Anyway, what it does is pretty simple. It detects incoming gravitational manipulation, absorbs the energy, stores it in a quantum battery array, and then allows the user to redirect that energy however they want. Jack paused, his smile growing wider. Which means basically you just gave me a really nice power boost, so thanks for that. That technology should not exist, Thorak said, his voice barely above a whisper. Our scientists said it was theoretically impossible to store gravitational energy in a portable format. Yeah. Well, your scientists were wrong, Jack replied cheerfully. Super wrong. Like impressively wrong. We have been using these things for decades. Mining operations, construction, deep space exploration. Anywhere you might encounter weird gravity, boom, you wear one of these. Problem solved. Vekris felt his world tilting. Every briefing, every intelligence report, every strategic assessment about human technological capabilities, all of it, wrong. You are bluffing, he said, though his voice lacked conviction. This is some kind of prototype, an experimental model. Jack laughed. Actually laughed. The sound echoed through the cargo bay, mocking and light. Oh man, you really did not do your homework, did you? He stood up from the crate and held out his wrist. Check the serial number. Unit 774-329-B. You know what the B stands for? Basic model. Not advanced, not military grade, basic, the kind we give to first-year engineering students. He flexed his fingers, and the wristband responded. A small sphere of concentrated gravitational force materialized above his palm, hovering there like a miniature planet. Vekris watched in horror as Jack casually tossed it from hand to hand. The same energy that should have killed him now reduced to a plaything. Want to see something cool? Jack did not wait for an answer. He flicked his wrist and the sphere shot upward, sticking to the ceiling with enough force to make the entire structure groan. Then, with another gesture, he released it. The sphere dissipated harmlessly into the air.
That was maybe, 5% of what you guys hit me with?
Jack said, checking his wristband's display. Still got plenty left in the tank. You know, in case you wanted to try again. I mean, you probably should not, but the option is there. Sergeant Krell lowered his weapon completely. Commander, we need to abort. This is beyond our operational parameters. Abort? Jack's eyebrows shot up. Wow, you guys went from murderous ambush to running away pretty quick. Not judging. Actually, yeah, I am totally judging. You ambushed one guy. One, with 7 soldiers and fancy weapons. And now you want to run because your fancy weapons did not work. Vekris felt something crack inside him. Not physically. Psychologically. The careful superiority he had built his entire career on. The assumption that the Crothian Empire was technologically dominant, culturally advanced, militarily supreme. It was all crumbling, shattered by one human in a cargo bay wearing standard-issue equipment. How many of you have these devices? Vekris asked quietly. Jack shrugged. I do not know. Millions. Billions. They are not exactly rare. Pretty much anyone who works off-world has one. Kind of a safety requirement, you know? Millions. Billions. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Vekris's pride would not allow this. Could not allow this. He had not climbed through 15 years of military ranks, survived 3 combat tours, earned 4 medals of distinction, just to be humiliated by one human with a wristband. He slammed his fist against his comm unit. Command. This is Strike Team Vekris. Requesting immediate backup. Heavy artillery support. Authorization code Crimson 9. Static crackled for a moment before a response came through. Confirmed, Commander. Battlecruiser Domination is in orbit. Deploying secondary strike team with gravitational artillery. ETA 4 minutes. Jack tilted his head, listening. Oh, you called for backup. That is adorable. Really? I am genuinely touched that you think more of the same thing that did not work will somehow work better. Retreat to secondary positions. Vekris ordered his team. Maintain visual contact with the target. Do not let him escape. Escape? Jack called out as the Crothian soldiers scrambled backward. Where exactly would I escape to? I am still looking for those compression coils. You guys are the ones who interrupted my shopping trip. Vekris positioned himself behind a support column, his mind racing. The gravitational artillery was different. Bigger. More powerful. Not designed for precision strikes against individual targets, but for destroying fortified positions. Surely there had to be a limit to how much energy that wristband could absorb. The weight was agonizing. 3 minutes and 47 seconds of watching the human casually browse through storage containers like nothing had happened. Like he had not just invalidated the Empire's primary weapons technology. Like this was a perfectly normal day. Then, the cargo bay's northern wall exploded inward. 6 more Crothian soldiers poured through the breach, but these were different. Heavier armor, weapons mounted on tripods, gravitational artillery cannons that normally required 2 soldiers to operate. They set up positions with practiced efficiency, forming a crossfire pattern that would catch the human in overlapping fields. Captain Zorath, commander of the 2nd Strike Team, surveyed the scene with his usual cold professionalism. Target acquired. All units, prepare coordinated strike on my mark. Captain, Vecris transmitted urgently. Be advised, the target has defensive technology that absorbs gravitational energy. Recommend maximum output. Noted. Zorath replied. Unbothered. Artillery units are rated for structural demolition. If the target can absorb this, we have bigger problems than one human. Jack stopped browsing and turned to face the new arrivals. He actually waved. Hey guys, new friends. Great, this is turning into a real party. Anyone bring snacks? Fire, Zorath commanded. The artillery cannons discharged with a sound like reality tearing. The gravity disruptors from earlier had been precise, focused. This was raw, overwhelming force. The kind of energy output meant to collapse buildings, to crush armored vehicles, to reduce fortified bunkers to rubble. The cargo bay's floor buckled. Metal shrieked. The air itself seemed to compress into visible waves of distortion. Everything within 20 meters of Jack should have been reduced to atomic dust. Jack stood in the center of it all, his wristband now blazing like a tiny sun. Okay, he said, his voice somehow cutting through the cacophony. Okay, now that is more like it. That actually has some oomph to it. The wristband pulsed faster, brighter, the blue light now streaked with white. Vecris watched in absolute disbelief, as the artillery barrage enough energy to destroy half the mining colony simply vanished into that small device. The human did not even look strange. If anything, he looked mildly impressed. You guys really went all out this time. Jack continued examining his wristband's display. This is what, 50 times the output of your first attempt. Nice upgrade. Still not a problem though. Impossible, Zorath breathed. The energy readings are off the scale. That device should be melting. Should be exploding. Should be destroying him from the inside out. Should, Jack said, shaking his head. You people really need to update your understanding of the word impossible. This is basic human engineering. Basic. We teach this stuff in undergraduate programs. One of the artillery operators, a young soldier whose name Vecris did not know, dropped his weapon and ran, just turned and sprinted back through the breach without a word. Vecris could not even bring himself to order the soldier back. The fear was contagious. He could feel it spreading through his own chest, cold and suffocating. Maintain fire, Zorath ordered desperately. Cycle to maximum output. All units. Their artillery cannons whined, their power cores straining. The barrage intensified. The cargo bay was coming apart around them, walls cracking, ceiling supports groaning. Everything was being destroyed. Everything except Jack. You know what is funny? Jack said, his voice cutting through the destruction with infuriating casualness. I am actually starting to get annoyed now. Not because you are attacking me. That part is whatever, but because you are wrecking this facility, and I still have not found my compression coils. Do you have any idea how hard those are to source? Another soldier broke ranks and fled. Then another. Hold positions, Vecris shouted, but his voice cracked. The authority was gone. The certainty was gone. Everything was gone except the terrible dawning realization that they had made a catastrophic mistake. Jack's wristband was now almost too bright to look at directly, a miniature star wrapped around a human's arm, and he still was not even sweating. Jack looked at his wristband one more time, then up at the remaining Crothian soldiers with an expression that could only be described as theatrical disappointment. All right, he said, cracking his knuckles. So here is the thing. I am a pretty patient guy. Really I am. But you just destroyed about 40,000 credits worth of mining equipment, scared off any salvage opportunities I might have had. And honestly, you are starting to hurt my feelings with this whole murder attempt situation. He tapped the wristband twice. Time for a demonstration. The first thing that happened was Sergeant Krell lifted off the ground. Not violently, not dramatically. He just floated upward slowly and inexorably, like a balloon filled with helium. His arms windmilled frantically, his legs kicked at empty air, and his weapon clattered to the floor below him. What? Krell shouted. What is happening to me? Localized gravity inversion, Jack explained cheerfully. Super simple. I am just redirecting a tiny fraction of the energy you guys gave me. You are currently experiencing about 0.2 times standard gravity in a 3-meter bubble around your body. Enjoy the flight. Then Lieutenant Tharak started floating, then 2 of the artillery operators, then Captain Zorath, who had just enough time to look absolutely horrified before his boots left the ground. Stop this, Zorath demanded, trying to aim his sidearm while spinning slowly in midair. Stop this immediately. Stop. But we are just getting started, Jack said. He gestured with his other hand, and suddenly every weapon in the cargo bay, every gravity disruptor, every artillery cannon, every sidearm, became approximately 10 times heavier than it should be. Soldiers still on the ground dropped their equipment with cries of pain as the suddenly massive weight threatened to break their arms. Vekris clung to his support column, watching his entire strike force become a circus act. Some floating helplessly toward the ceiling, others pinned to the ground by their own weapons. The rest scrambling for cover from an attack they could not fight, could not understand, could not counter. You see, Jack continued, walking casually between the chaos like a professor giving a lecture. The thing about gravity manipulation is that it goes both ways. You can compress things, sure, but you can also decompress them, invert them, redirect them. It is all about understanding the fundamental forces at play. He pointed at one of the artillery cannons, and it crumpled like paper, folding in on itself until it was the size of a basketball. The operator who had been manning it screamed and tried to crawl away. Humans figured this out a long time ago, Jack said. Had to, really. When you start mining asteroids, building space stations, working in environments with wildly different gravitational constants, you need technology that can adapt, can protect you, can turn an environmental hazard into a tool. Vekris tried to raise his comm unit, to call for orbital support, for evacuation, for anything. His arm would not move. The gravity around him had shifted, pressing him against the column with the force of 3 standard gravities. He could barely breathe. The Crothian Empire has been using gravity weapons for what, 3 years? Jack asked, though clearly he already knew the answer. We have been countering them for 40 years. Do you understand the technological gap that represents? You guys are using catapults while we have railguns. Another gesture, and the soldiers floating near the ceiling suddenly dropped, not all the way to the floor, but halfway, where they hung suspended in midair like insects in amber. Their terror was palpable, their clicks and whistles of distress filling the cargo bay. Please, one of them begged in broken standard language. Please, we surrender, we surrender. Oh, now you want to surrender, Jack said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. After the ambush, after the attempted murder, after calling in artillery support, now, when things are not going your way, surrender sounds good. He walked over to where Vekris was pinned, crouching down to make eye contact. All 4 of Vekris's eyes met the humans too, and what the commander saw there was not anger, it was something worse. Disappointment. Your intelligence was bad, Jack said simply. Really, catastrophically bad. You thought humans were weak because we come from a low-gravity world. You thought our technology was primitive because we are a young spacefaring species. You thought one engineer alone would be easy prey. The pressure on Vekris increased slightly. Not enough to injure, but enough to make the point. We are not weak, Jack continued. We are adaptive. Every challenge we face, every environmental hazard, every hostile force, we study it, we understand it, and we build technology to counter it. Gravity weapons? Old news. We encountered those with the Fornax Collective in 2143. Took us 6 months to develop countermeasures. That was 4 decades ago. He stood up, brushing off his jacket like he was cleaning dust from a casual stroll. You want to know the really funny part? Jack asked the cargo bay at large. I am not even military. I am an engineer. A civilian. The absolute lowest tier of human technological capability in terms of defensive equipment. If you had tried this on an actual soldier, they would have sent your gravitational energy back at you hard enough to create a singularity. He snapped his fingers, and every Crothian soldier dropped to the ground simultaneously. They landed hard but uninjured, groaning and disoriented. So here is what is going to happen, Jack said, his voice losing all traces of humor. You are going to sit there quietly while I contact my people. Then, they are going to come pick you up. And then, you are going to go back to your empire and explain exactly how badly you messed up today. Clear. No one argued. No one even moved. Vecris lay on the cold metal floor, his weapons useless, his soldiers defeated, his pride shattered into a million irreparable pieces, and the human had not even broken a sweat. 30 minutes later, Vecris sat with his back against a cargo container, his wrists bound with some kind of human restraint technology that felt like soft fabric but might as well have been titanium. Around him, his strike team, what was left of it anyway, sat in similar positions, defeated, humiliated, broken. Jack was on his comm device, speaking to someone in that casual, almost musical way humans talk to each other. "Yeah, hey Commander Patterson, it is Jack. Jack Reeves. From engineering. Listen, I have got a weird situation here at Epsilon Ridge." He paused, listening. No, I am fine, totally fine, but I have got about 13 Crothian soldiers who just tried to kill me with gravity weapons, and I am not really sure what the protocol is for that." Vecris could hear a tinny voice responding through the comm, angry and urgent. I know, Jack said, sounding almost apologetic. "I should have called sooner, but honestly it was over pretty quick, and I did not want to bother anyone if I could handle it myself." Another pause. "Yes, I used the guard. Standard absorption and redirection. Worked like a charm." The voice on the other end grew louder. Okay. You are right. I should not have engaged alone. But in my defense, they kind of ambushed me. Not a lot of choice in the matter." Jack glanced over at Vecris and the others. "Yeah, they are all secure. No injuries on either side. Well, maybe some bruised egos, but that is about it." Bruised egos. As if that came close to describing the existential horror currently consuming Vecris's thoughts. "Transport would be great," Jack continued, "and maybe send someone from intelligence. I think these guys had some seriously outdated information about our capabilities. Might be worth finding out where that came from." He listened again, then laughed. "Yeah, I will write up a report, though honestly, it is pretty straightforward. They shot gravity weapons at me. I absorbed the energy. They called for backup. I absorbed more energy. Then I politely asked them to stop, and they did." Politely asked. The human had turned them into helpless floating targets and called it politely asking. Jack ended the call and walked over to where Vecris sat. He leaned against the container, looking down with that same insufferable expression. "Transport is on the way," he said. "Should be here in about an hour. You guys comfortable? Need water or anything? I have got some ration bars if anyone is hungry." No one responded. What was there to say? Not the talkative type after a failed assassination, I guess. Jack said. "Fair enough." Vecris finally found his voice. It came out hoarse, defeated. How many what?" Jack asked. "How many of our intelligence reports were wrong? How many of our assumptions about your species were incorrect? How many advantages we had that do not actually exist?" Jack considered this for a moment, his expression becoming almost pitying. "Honestly, probably all of them. If your strategists think humans are physically weak, technologically inferior and easy targets, then yeah, all of it. Wrong." He crouched down to Vecris's eye level. "Look, I am going to be straight with you, because I actually feel a little bad about this. Your empire has been expanding for what, 1,000 years? 2,000? You have conquered dozens of species, right? And most of them probably were weaker than you. Probably did roll over when you showed up with superior weapons and tactics." Vecris said nothing, but the truth of it burned. "Humans are different," Jack continued. "We have only been in space for about 200 years, but in that time we have faced every environmental hazard you can imagine. Radiation belts that should have killed us, gravity wells that should have crushed us, atmospheric pressures that should have imploded our ships, and every single time we adapted. We built technology to survive, to thrive." He stood up, looking at the assembled Crothian soldiers with something between pity and disappointment. "You thought gravity weapons would be a trump card, a way to leverage your superior understanding of physics against primitive humans. But we encountered gravity weapons decades ago, built counters, moved on. What you think is your cutting-edge technology is our obsolete history." Captain Zorath, still nursing an injured pride from his floating experience, spoke up. "The war. This changes the war. Does it?" Jack asked. "I mean, from my perspective, there does not need to be a war at all. You guys could just, not invade human space, not try to kill random engineers, not assume you are automatically superior to every species you meet. That would solve a lot of problems." The sound of engines approached from outside, human transport ships, arriving right on schedule. "That is your ride," Jack said cheerfully. "They will get you processed. probably ask you a bunch of questions and eventually send you home. I would recommend being cooperative. Humans can be really nice if you are not actively trying to murder them. He walked toward the cargo bay entrance, then paused and turned back. Oh, and one more thing. When you get back to your empire, when you report to your superiors about what happened here, make sure you tell them the truth. Tell them that one human engineer, with standard issue equipment, barely breaking a sweat, completely neutralized your elite strike team and your heavy artillery support. Tell them that what they think they know of humanity is wrong. Tell them that picking a fight with us is a really, really bad idea. His smile returned, sharp and knowing. Because if they do not believe you, if they keep coming, the next humans they meet might not be as nice as me. And trust me, you do not want to find out what our actual military can do. Jack gave a small mocking salute and walked out into the artificial sunlight of Epsilon Ridge. Vekris sat in the darkness of the cargo bay surrounded by his defeated soldiers, and tried to comprehend the magnitude of their failure. They had not just lost a battle, they had revealed the fundamental flaw in the Empire's entire strategic doctrine. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was the predator they had been too arrogant to recognize. And that realization, more than any gravity weapon, more than any humiliating defeat, was the thing that would haunt Vekris for the rest of his life. The soft fabric restraints held firm as human soldiers entered the bay, professional and efficient, and Vekris, commander of the Crothian Empire's elite forces, decorated veteran of 3 campaigns, could do nothing but sit there and accept his fate. Underestimating humans, he now understood, was not just a mistake. It was a death sentence.